Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to the Checkmate Patterns Manual. I'm very excited to share a peek inside of this course with you guys. I've just spent the last 2 weeks creating 10 hours worth of video based on this course, and let me tell you, it was an absolute joy to do that. But before we get into that, let's talk about the origins of the Checkmate Patterns Manual, because this project was only possible because of one man. His name is up here in blue, CraftyRaf. Yes, you may know him on Chessable. I'm going to click to his author page. That is the man himself. He is the creator of the smash hit course, Checkmate Patterns. That was the predecessor to the Checkmate Patterns Manual and what the Checkmate Patterns Manual is based off of. He created that course in 2019, Checkmate Patterns, and it accumulated over 1,000 students. It had a tremendous amount of positive feedback. And what CraftyRaf did there is he looked at the existing material out there on checkmate patterns, how you actually get the job done and checkmate in chess and win the game. And he created a comprehensive trainable guide in Chessable form to these patterns. And he accurately described the patterns, in many cases coming up with patterns within a pattern. So if he was giving, let's say, Lali's mate, he would give multiple examples of that, if appropriate, showing all different deviations of your typical patterns. Smothered mate, for instance, we all know that. He wasn't satisfied with just, let's look at the usual smothered mate. No, let's look at it with different sacrifices involved, different configurations to truly make it a comprehensive guide. And that's what the Checkmate Patterns Manual is. It is a comprehensive guide based on CraftyRaf's original work. So a huge shout out to him. I should also mention that he has another course called Dazzling Defenses Against Checkmate Patterns. So if you enjoy the Checkmate Patterns Manual, which I'm confident you will, do check out his other course. So CraftyRaf was nice enough to discuss with us here at Chessable how to improve checkmate patterns. And he was very receptive to the idea because we saw how successful his course was and how much people loved it and were learning from it. He was receptive to the idea of expanding this and making it a true manual, comprehensive guide, even more so than it was, adding in new exercises and adding video as well to truly round out the explanations. And this is the final product. And CraftyRaf and I are so happy, along with that entire Chessable team. This was a huge effort by our team as well. We're very pleased with this final product. We really believe that this is a guide that players will come back to for years to come, and it will be applicable. It is applicable to players of all levels. So even though this is a course on checkmates, if you're a strong player, do not pass this up. At least give it a look. Look at the free material because there are some fundamental things that you may not know. For example, I don't know if you know Balestra Mate. I had never heard of Balestra Mate prior to going through this course, but my eyes were opened. And even for the fact that you can drill so many different types of checkmates, there are a ton of exercises in this course. I think it's well worth even stronger players' time, especially the low-rated players. Those of you casual beginning players, this, in my opinion, is a must-have course, and I do not say that lightly. I use it with my own students in teaching now. It's everything you would want in a guide on checkmates. So enough about that. Let's actually talk about the meat of the course. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So I have added 10 hours worth of video in now, and I go through the 30 checkmate chapters featuring all of the checkmate patterns themselves using CraftyRaf's informational lines. And also I typically go through 2 games based on the pattern itself for each individual pattern. And in many cases, there are patterns within patterns, as we shall see. So it ended up being 10 hours worth of video. There are 1,000 variations here. So 130 puzzles have been added to make it an even 1,000 variations in the Checkmate Patterns Manual. So truly a meaty course. And again, the video course is optional. As always, you can purchase the Move Trainer course itself where you get access to all of the material. You can see the breakdown right here, just how many variations there are on all the different types of checkmates. And if you're interested in the video, you can always check that out and add that on. I do recommend it, of course, because I did it. So let's look at the chapter breakdown. This will give you a very clear picture of the Checkmate Patterns manual. So there are 36 chapters now. I was about to say 35, but we added a new chapter or two. 36 chapters. This will keep you very busy. Let's start up top with the introduction. Don't skip the introduction on this course because CraftyRaf does a great job of talking about the breakdown. You will find that he was incredibly meticulous. Again, 500 hours is what he spent on this course and growing. So he talks about how there is a basic test to begin with, featuring 35 checkmate patterns that you can initially try. If you've gone through 100 endgames, you must know this is kind of like a precursor test to actually learning the material. You'll probably be able to solve some of the patterns. It will probably tell you what patterns you're weak on. You'll get a sense of where you can improve. So you can start with the basic test, and then there are the 30 checkmate pattern chapters. That's where my video comes in. I go through all of the material with the patterns and usually 2 games per pattern within those chapters. Then after that, there's a warm-up chapter, which we will see, which consists of 200 plus easier puzzles based on the material. And then there's the exercises chapter, which is a bit of a step up. As he says here, more than 75% of these puzzles are mate in 3, mate in 4, or mate in 5. So progressively more difficult. And then there's the final test, consisting of 100 of the hardest puzzles in the course. And a little secret about that, we've actually been having some super GMs who are currently playing in the Chessable Masters take this final test. And you'll probably see those videos on our social media and some of our mailings. It was very interesting watching guys like MVL and Ding Loren solve these puzzles. And CraftyRaf goes into how the puzzles are organized, how he structured the course in terms of drilling the puzzles. So he really made an effort to make these puzzles drillable to checkmate. So there will be games cited, and even though the games may have ended with a resignation before a checkmate occurred, he takes it further and he shows you the full mate. And in my videos, I go through and tell you, often giving a lot of background about the games, where a player resigned, why, and how the game would go if it was played till the conclusion. So do take a look at the introduction. There's a chapter on the indices, actually. Chapter 2. Again, something that you might often just skip, but this is actually very handy. So if you're curious about a player, let's choose a player. Maybe I can find someone of note here. Let's say Alexander Alyoshin, or Alekhine, as he's sometimes called in the West. So if you're wondering, what are all the checkmates that Alyoshin had in the Checkmate Patterns manual? Well, these are all hyperlinked. So you can click. Let's click on number 3 here. And it's going to open directly to the variation. This game, Alyoshin versus Yates from 1922, featuring a checkmate. Oh, this is a nice one, actually. This is the Blind Swine Mate, famous game of Alyoshin's, where he was able to quite decisively bring his king to the center of the board, setting up a potential mate with 2 rooks like this. Very, very nice. So that's just a cool little chapter right there. I haven't seen that done before in Chessable courses with the hyperlinks. I believe CraftyRaf is the first person to have done that. So now we have the basic test, which I actually have not taken yet because this is new. We just launched this for the course. Again, Checkmate Patterns has been expanded to make the Checkmate Patterns manual, so there's some new material. So why don't we actually solve a few here just to get us in the mood. So we got some instructions here, and let's hit a couple of these patterns. Okay, I recognize this one. You guys will really get to see me put to the test here as someone who just spent 2 weeks with this material. I should know it pretty well. Okay, this is Anastasias Mate. There's a white knight on e7 that importantly is controlling this g8 square. Black's king cannot go there. Note, white also has a queen on c2 pointed at the h7 pawn and a rook on b4 ready to swing over to the king side at a moment's notice. So here white can sacrifice their queen. Queen takes h7. Black takes, and now rook h4 is Anastasias Mate. Oh, okay, this is based on an Alyoshin game. once again from 1910. Let's do one or two more. I don't want to spoil this chapter for you guys. Okay, so this one is going to be a sacrifice on h7 to expose the black king, and then queen h5, because note that the bishop is controlling this important flight square on g8. So we have Greco's mate, named after the Italian player from the 1600s, Gioacchino Greco. Fascinating guy. He published a lot of analysis and games actually, where his opponents were anonymous. All right, let's do one more. Okay. So black's knight is under attack here, but black is hitting the pawn on g3. I think this is going to be Arabian mate, guys. I think it's going to be rook takes g3 check, knight f3 to drive the king to the corner, and now rook g1 mate. Yep, Arabian mate. This is from a game played in 2006. So everything is meticulously organized with the names of the mate everywhere in this course. So where the mates are, the relevant checkmate is given. CraftyRaf really makes an effort to do that and make sure you're constantly reinforcing the material as you go along. So that's a fun way to get started, going through that. Go back into the chapter breakdown here. So you can take the basic test, and then we get into the learning chapters where I have added the video. So 30 different chapters here, and just look at the sheer amount of mates. We start with Anastasias Mate, Greco's mate, Arabian mate. We just saw examples of those. Then you get into stuff that you may not know. Again, I didn't know Vukovic's mate prior to doing this course. I'd seen the mechanics of it before, but I had never put a name to it and seen organized examples of it. Smothered mate, as we all know. Suffocation mate, which is somewhat similar to smothered mate, often involving a bishop. Pillsbury's mate, there's checkmates named after famous players. Of course, Morphy's mate, opera mate, based on a win by Morphy in the 1850s, the famous Opera House game. There's stuff that's very visual, like dovetail mate, swallow's tail mate, so named after birds. And these refer to the flight squares for the enemy king, the checkmated king, and how they resemble a bird's tail, a dove, or a swallow in terms of the escape squares being taken away. A lot of visuals like that. Balestra mate, one of my favorites. Just giving you a general overview here before we click into a chapter or two. Double bishop's mate, sometimes it's very descriptive. Blackburn's mate, which is a cool one involving a queen sacrifice. Blind swine mate, as you saw in that El Jochen game. Epaulette mate. Epaulettes are decorative shoulder coverings, I guess. Basically decorative shoulder gear that you see on military costumes. And that resembles rooks in the form of a checkmate pattern here. I should just show you as opposed to describing it. It doesn't really make sense. But in epaulette mate, there is a checkmate with a queen against the enemy king with two flight squares taken away. So you can see the black rooks on f8 and h8 prevent the black king from escaping here. And there's the shoulders thing with the the particular rooks blocking the king's escape. I explained it much more eloquently in the course, I promise. So, yeah, a lot of descriptive checkmates going on. There's checkmates like lawnmower mate later on. Yeah, lawnmower mate, triangle mate, killbox mate. There's even a chapter on mate in the opening, going through typical checkmates you'll see, like fool's mate, scholar's mate, Legal's mate, based on a game from 1750 by Kermercier de Legal. So, truly a comprehensive guide. And why don't I click into a chapter just to show you how the video looks. Let's look at Max Lange's mate. This is a nice little pattern involving a queen and a bishop. So everything is synced as usual in our videos. And you can filter based on video as well. So here I'm going through the informational line talking about this particular checkmate. This is the stripped down version of it, which CraftyRaf gives to give you a clear picture of the checkmate before you see it in some games. So let me mute this here. And if you click filter based on video, you can always break down to this particular line that the person, the video presenter, me in this case, is going through on the video. So I'm discussing this informational line here, showing how to do this pattern. In this one, it's important to use this bishop. You want to bring the bishop to g8 to check the enemy king, but not let it escape to this g6 square. So you'll see I'm pointing out that you do not want black to go there. This forces black to play king h8. And now white needs to move the bishop in such a way with discovered check so that black will be forced to h7 and the g6 square will be covered by the bishop when mate is delivered. So now queen g8 is checkmate. This is like some Inception style thing. I know I'm even wearing the same shirt as I am in the video. So again, that's this variation here. If I click into it, this is very typical for what you'll see in the learning chapters. So CraftyRaf has given the mate itself, showing the sequence in stripped down form. This is the pattern, describes it, gives some history on it, which I go into a lot in the videos, how these checkmate patterns have come about. Often there's cool stories behind them, and I really make an effort to enlighten you historically because I think that, first of all, makes it really entertaining, and also it aids in your understanding. So this was based on a game, Anderson versus Max Lange, played in 1859. And then once you've learned the pattern, you can drill some positions based on it. And let's do this one. Yeah, this one's pretty cool. Well, okay, I don't want to overstudy it. I want to actually drill one. Let's do the original game from 1859, Anderson versus Max Lange. Okay. So black has a bishop on c5, controlling this g1 square. And we need to get the queen involved somehow. Do notice, though, that white's queen on d1 is guarding the pawn here. So I believe black will want to play a queen move to the 4th rank to try to set up queen h4. That is likely how this pattern is going to be arranged. I'm just deciding between queen f4 and queen e4. There's also even queen g5 as a possibility here to try to get the queen over there. I think I like queen e4. This looks like a great centralizing move. Yep. Okay. Good memory, John. When you've been through 30 chapters of these and seen all the patterns, even IMs have to review. Okay, now I want to go queen h4 check to draw the white queen over. Now play queen e1. And here you can see the similarity to that informational line. So we don't want to play queen g1 check because that's going to allow the white king to escape to g3. We want to play bishop g1 check, forcing the king back. And now bishop f2 check. Again, we're being hyper vigilant about this g3 square. And now queen g1 is Max Lange's mate. There you have it. So again, I go through examples of these on video. I actually talk about this game that I wanted to drill, Fier versus Willems, but I'll save that for you guys. And let me show you the patterns within a pattern that often exist in this course. Let's choose one with a lot of variations. Let's say Opera Mate. This is a good chapter. Okay, so here you can see that there's an initial informational line showing the basic checkmate. This is a mate involving a rook and a bishop, and it often has a queen sacrifice involved, as in the original Opera House game, which is hyperlinked here. This is also called Mayet's mate, by the way, named after Karl Mayet. So here, white can play queen takes h7 check, forcing king takes h7, and now rook h4 check. Notice the white bishop on c3. It's controlling this important g7 square. And then after king g8, rook h8 is checkmate. So once we've seen a variation like that, you can drill it in a couple games. And then there's Opera Mate, Mayet's Mate 2. And here we have the original Opera game. So here, queen sacrifice in a different way, not taking a pawn this time, but actually forcing black's knight to capture here because, again, white has a bishop controlling an important escape square on e7. So knight takes b8, and now rook d8 is checkmate. And then you can drill some examples based on that. There's the third one. Okay, so now we're getting even more complicated, where there's a queen sacrifice, but a discovered check with the rook this time. This one's cool. So in this case, white plays queen h8 check, forcing king takes h8, and now rook h3, discovered check and double check, actually, from the rook and the dark square bishop. This forces king g8, and now rook h8 mate. And CraftyRaf describes this. He says, sometimes opera mate is preceded by a discovered check or even a double check, whether or not combined with a sacrifice, to force the king into a mating net. And the constant reinforcement of this is just, it makes this a real joy to play through, and you feel very comfortable solving once you've gone through examples like this. So this is the one of the games I did on video. It's white to move here. Feel free to pause if you want to solve it yourself. But this one is queen g8 check, forcing black to capture, and now white can play bishop d5, double check from the bishop and the rook, and the rook is coming into g8 for an opera mate. In this chapter, there's even some bonus material. Reddy's mate and Anderson's mate. Reddy's mate is cool because it's, again, the rook and the bishop working together, as in the normal opera mate. But this time, it's white mating with the bishop in very peculiar fashion here. The rook on d1 defends the bishop, and the bishop is looking through the black king to guard the b6 square, this escape square. This is played in one of Reddy's games. So that's typical of how the chapter breakdown is when there's multiple patterns within a pattern. So no stone is left unturned in the Checkmate Patterns Manual when it comes to these checkmates. There's some really fun stuff too. Chapter number 21 is a personal favorite of mine. This is David and Goliath mate. This involves mating with a pawn. All sorts of schemes there. Let me show you one from this chapter. There's several informational examples. I want to show you one that I gave my student today. Yeah, it's this one. We'll overstudy this. Okay. This is from a game of American Grandmaster Andy Soltis's. And he actually missed the checkmate in this game. So black to move, white has just played bishop from b3 to d1, attacking the rook on e2. White's king is looking weak, though, for sure. And in the game, Soltis played rook e1 here, and he did go on to win. But it's stronger to play rook g2 check. This forces king h4, and of course, again, pause your video. Hope you have by now if you want to solve this. And the thought process here goes as follows. We're probably looking at the checks as black, as we always should. Look at the forcing moves. Rook f4 is going to allow bishop g4. White can block, and there is no mate there. If black plays g5 check in this position, white plays king h5, and again, there's no immediate mate. However, if you can seal off this h5 square, it would be checkmate by virtue of playing g5. White would not have that escape square available to their king. So the idea here is to play rook h5 check and force white to take it with the bishop. They couldn't take it with the king because black has a pawn on g6. And now black can deliver David and Goliath mate with g5. Very tidy conclusion there. There's a Karpov game in this chapter too showing this same theme. So there's just a lot of fun stuff in the Checkmate Patterns Manual. So do not think that this is going to be tedious at all. You'll probably be drilling this course so frequently that it won't seem like work to you at all. And it shouldn't be. It will be a lot of fun. So those are the learning chapters. And if we go down to the final three chapters. Oh, and I should mention mate in the opening as well. This is, as I said, going through some typical checkmate ideas. There's some cool stuff. We've often taken examples. Crafty has taken examples from other courses on Chessable as well, with the permission of the authors. So this is one by International Master Christoph Selecki, aka Chess Explained, going over a smothered mate that can happen out of the Caro-Kann defense. So in this position here, black has just played knight from b8 to d7, a terrible move, and I hope you all see the answer to this. White can play knight d6, smothered mate. There we go, thanks to Mr. Selecki Christoph for the assist here with this exercise. And this position, by the way, I talk about this in the video course. I looked this up on Lichess in the Lichess database. This has been reached over 1,200 times by Lichess players. So Black has blundered into this a great many times online. So yeah, this is just a very fun chapter. Fool's Mate, the quickest way to win or lose a game. Everyone's favorite Scholar's Mate is discussed with the checkmate on f7. This is a checkmate pattern. You have to be aware of it. I'm sure many of you have become aware of that in painful fashion over the years. Legal's Mate. This is a really cool one where white ends up checkmating with a minor piece. It's 2 or 3 minor pieces involved here and a queen sacrifice to do it. It's based on the game Kermersier de Legal versus Saint Brie from 1750, this game, which is the only game played by Kermersier de Gaulle that survives, actually. It's his only recorded game. He was a very strong player in the 1700s. The first half of the 1700s, he was regarded as the best player in France. France was the chess mecca at that time, and he might have been the best player in the world. Also the teacher of Philidor, by the way. So, yeah, here, Legal was able to end this game as follows. And this is the trap, the mating pattern that bears his name. Okay, and as I mentioned, after the learning chapters, we have the final 3 chapters in the course where you can drill lots of positions. There are the warm-up puzzles. Again, these tend to be fairly easier, more straightforward. This will be a good way to practice after you go through the checkmate patterns material. Let's solve one here. This looks like a mate with knight takes h6 check, king h8, and then rook h7. So the rook delivering the blow. g7 check is nearly mate, but black does have king h7. So we give this one. This is Vukovic's mate, involving a protected rook and a knight taking away 1 or 2 flight squares. Let's try one more. We saw this one already. This is the Anastasias Mate, named after a character in an 1803 novel. So you can go through that and drill some of the easier puzzles in the course. And then you get into the more difficult stuff. There's a great many puzzles in this chapter, 282 variations in the exercises chapter. And then if you really want the hard stuff, you go to the final test. And this is what the Super GMs have been drilling. I've only seen a few of the problems in here, but I'm actually really curious. I'm going to go drill some of this myself. Oh, okay, let's try to solve this. This looks intriguing. Okay. So I believe this is going to be queen e7 check. Bishop takes e7, and then rook d8. Black is caught on the back rank here. They'll have to play bishop takes d8 at that point, and we can capture. So this is a back rank mate. Let's do one more. Could this be a David and Goliath mate? I'm instantly looking at rook d6 check, all but forcing king takes e5. Knight e6 would be the only other move, but king takes e5. And then I'd like to play knight f7 check, defending the rook on d6, by the way. Black would have to play king f5, and then g4 will be a pawn mate, David and Goliath mate. I think that's the answer, unless there's a faster mate. I don't see it, though. I like rook d6 a lot. Yeah, and check. And when you're working through these problems, by the way, you should make a serious effort to try to get them correct in your head before you make the first move. I talk about this in my videos a lot, but it's just very important to be able to play the solution pretty quickly and not have to reassess. So this is a game played in 1947. There we have it, David and Goliath mate. So there's a ton of material here for your review. I do hope you check out the Checkmate Patterns Manual, work through the basic test. If you decide to get the videos, thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions about them. This was a real passion project by CraftyRaf, first and foremost, the creator of this course, leading to the expanded, now Checkmate Patterns Manual, and also myself and our Chessable team. And again, I'm just super excited to share this with you guys. So please do let us know if you have any questions on the material. Once again, here's a last picture of the breakdown with the 35 chapters. Hope I gave a good overview of that for you guys. I know I was looking at some of my personal favorites in here, but do take a look at it. Enjoy the Checkmate Patterns Manual. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll be in the comments. And happy checkmating, everyone. Bye.
There are more moves in chess than atoms in the universe. But only one move ends the game.
My name is John Bartholomew, and this is the Checkmate Patterns Manual.